All praises, honor, and glory be to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakak Wadash, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Kol Haloyim La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai. All praises to our power Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, the God of heaven and earth. Double honor to the elder apostles of Great Millstone. Peace, love, blessings, and salutations. As always, from Yah be to the hopeful elect. Habayath Madawadah, the house of David, the brothers laboring day in and day out, giving all diligence to make their calling and election sure, helping seal the elect of the nation of Israel, for the return of our Lord Hamashiach Yahushai is at hand, and to the Akim Wagwath, which are the brothers and sisters that also listen and believe on this glorious gospel that's being preached throughout the four corners of the earth. To you I say shalom. Shalom be to the hopeful elect. This is the brother Sagalah, back another day, all through the spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. I don't want to write this lesson is edifying, exhorting, and comforting unto the believers. So I'm going to jump right into it through the spirit. And as you see, the premise of the lesson is coming from this title, from this article, which is dated April the 24th, 2023. And it's from the Watcher.Guru News. Now, this is the business section. It says Brics, which is short for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It says Brics, 19 nations submit membership requests ahead of annual summit. So the annual summit is going to be in South Africa in August. And this is a picture of the original members, once again going into Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now there's an assembly of other nations that are joined unto the Brics Alliance, and that membership is growing. And we're going to read a little bit and get a few precepts all through the spirit. It says the growing prominence of the Brics countries is only set to continue expanding, as 19 nations have submitted membership requests ahead of their annual summit. Moreover, the event is set to take place in South Africa this summer, as a host of nations are seeking entry. Earlier this year, the Brics Collective made it known that they were open to new members. Additionally, as the bloc of countries has surpassed the G7 nations in GDP, it seems expansion could continue to implement a shift in the global power balance. And what's going on is the Brics nations that are aligning, these nations that are coming together, they are, coming up with a new currency. That's going to be one of the major things they're going to speak about on their platform when you look it up, as far as topics for their annual summit in August, right? Is the push for these nations to come together and come up with a strategy, to basically de-dollarize or push de-dollarization to destroy the dollar. It says, specifically amidst their continued efforts to replace the U.S. dollar in international trade. So that's a big part of this whole alliance that we're seeing, right? Now, let's continue on. It says BRICS sees a plethora of requests to join. Ahead of their annual summit taking place in South Africa, the BRICS nations have seen 19 nations submit membership requests. Moreover, the countries are seeking to join the growing collective already comprised of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, which these are the founding members. Bloomberg reported the emerging application list following previous statements on their willingness to expand. Additionally, Anal Sakal, the South African ambassador to the group, discussed the summit. Specifically, what topics are set to be on the agenda for discussion, it says, at the June event. Continuing on. What will be discussed is an expression of BRICS, it says, and the modalities of how this will happen. He said, according to Bloomberg, additionally stating that 13 countries have formally asked to join and another 6 have asked informally. Conclusively, Sakal said new applications are submitted every day. So we see this collective of nations, which once again, you have Russia, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, which are the founding members of BRICS, this alliance. You also have Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. You have Argentina, Mexico, and some of these are nations that are looking to join. Bangladesh, Algeria, Nigeria, Bahrain, and Indonesia, Uruguay. These are many of these nations that make up the 19 nations. Now, what's important about this is that with these nations, vying for membership, this shows, that this is the opposition that's being formed to the beast system in Babylon the Great, which is America. This is the opposition that we're seeing, right? And this is forwarding, right here, and I have another article. This is forwarding the agenda of the opposition to Babylon, which will ultimately lead to World War III. So that's what we're witnessing. Now, this says a new world order. Brics nations offer alternative to the West. So this is the alternative to Babylon, to the beast system, the European Union. Now, we know that ultimately there's going to be even more nations, even the EU, that's going to turn against Babylon. So let's jump into that, and let's just get the first precept real quick, going into the fact that this is the opposition. Brics is the opposition, and all the nations looking to join is the opposition to Babylon the Great and the beast system. Because these 19 nations, now is showing to be powerful, because the economic power that they have, the political power that they have, and strategic power, these nations are scattered throughout the Western Hemisphere, throughout Africa, Asia, all over the globe. Now, when you look at that, you see that the 31 nations that the beast system has, right? Now that number is growing more and more, that the Brics Alliance is growing stronger and stronger. And many of the nations in the Brics Alliance are much more powerful than the nations that are a part of, NATO and the EU and the beast system, right? So now let's get a quick precept showing through the Spirit, what thus saith the words of the Lord. Now, this is a prophecy that we're reading about. Jeremiah 50:9. It says, "For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations." And that's what we see in Brics, is that assembly of great nations, which is also, being pushed as an alternative to the West, right? This is the opposition to Babylon, ultimately. It says, Jeremiah 50:9, "For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations." So this is ultimately against Babylon, right? They're pushing counsel against Babylon to do away with the dollar and to destroy the rule and hegemony and preeminence of Babylon on earth. Because Babylon is the beast. It sits on the back of the beast, meaning it controls, the beast system. It says an assembly of great nations. And that's, once again, these 19 nations, many that are vying for membership. Because clearly you're either going to be on one side or the other. And that's how world war is typically fought, right? You're either on one side of the fence or the other. So you're either with Babylon or you're with the Brics Alliance. It says, "From the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her." So all these nations are doing what? Getting themselves together as far as their weaponry, militarily, economically, and they're coming against Babylon. That's them being in array. It says, "From this she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man, and none shall return in vain." So ultimately, the nations are going to fire on Babylon. That's the ultimate end game, is that World War III is going to ensue because of these different alliances. So war is upon us, as we already see. War has been going on over a year in Ukraine, with Russia basically invading Ukraine. And that's looking to spill, into different parts of Europe, Eastern Europe. So there's a lot of nations like Poland, Finland, Sweden, and others, Moldova, that are concerned that war could be coming into their nation next, that Russia won't stop here. Let's continue on with more prophecy. Jeremiah 51 and verse 1. "Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them." So all the nations that's gathered to Babylon, the Lord is raising up nations against them. "And them that dwell in the midst of them that raise up against me a destroying wind." And that's what? The nuclear destruction. "And I will send unto Babylon fanners that shall fan her, and shall empty her land. So ultimately, Babylon is going to be completely destroyed. When you read Zechariah 13, verses 8 and 9, Zephaniah 3 and verse 8, Hadawan said his determination is to gather the nations. So this opposition, this new world order, which is an opposition, is the opposition to Babylon. Continuing on. It says, for in the day of trouble, they shall be against her round about. Speaking of the other nations. It says, against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth up, it says, in his brigandine, that's all the military equipments, all of the spy technology that's there in the world, the satellites. That brigandine is also speaking about the tanks, the fighter jets, all of the aircraft carriers that's positioned around the world, right? I just saw last night on the news in Guam, there's a major aircraft carrier that's leaving Guam and going toward the Korean Peninsula, right? So that also goes into, once again, all the military technology, the missiles, all these things are symbolic of the brigandine, right? The jets, the helicopters. It says, and spare ye not her young men, destroy ye utterly all her hosts. So that's ultimately what's going to happen. This is what we're reading and what we're seeing, right, with this Brics alliance is the beginning of the end of Babylon, because this is the opposition to Babylon the Great, right? So now, let's continue actually to show that through the Spirit. So now, all of what we're seeing is going to lead very quickly to world war, and ultimately the missiles is going to be fired, right? So now we're seeing the wars and rumors of wars, because with the Brics alliance, it's causing more rumors of more war to come, trade wars going on, and these are all things that's all prophecy when you read throughout the Holy Scriptures. Now, another precept that comes to mind is Isaiah 13. Let me get that, Isaiah 13, and I'll go right to the point in verse 4. It says, the noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people. So the mountains are symbolic of the nations. So amongst the nations, there's a great noise, it says, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise. And why is this noise tumultuous? Because what we're hearing, the murmuring that we're hearing, is that World War III is upon us. You're seeing that all across the world, international news, local news, etc. A tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. So the Brics alliance, and then Babylon the Great, and the EU and NATO. These are the nations gathered together. The Lord Yahweh of hosts mustered the hosts of the battle, because the Most High is ultimately behind all these things that's going on. The scripture said the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men. And that, the king's heart is in the hand of Hadawan. He turneth it whithersoever he will. So all these things are being orchestrated by Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Isaiah 13 and 5, they come from a far country. It says, from the end of heaven, even the Lord Yahweh and the weapons of his indignation. So this is the righteous anger of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, which is the creation of these weapons, these ICBMs, these intercontinental ballistic missiles, because these weapons are going to be the wasters that's going to destroy various parts of the earth. Babylon being completely destroyed along with Israel, the land of Israel today. And the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land. So these weapons, these missiles that these nations have is going to cause great damage in these last days. And the elect are going to be delivered out of here. And we pray that we're of that number. So we labor and we give all diligence, and faith, hoping that our calling and election is sure, right? That the Most High, will have mercy upon us. Now let's show that even further. Spoke about the weapons of the Lord's indignation, right? They come from a far country. Here's a quick precept. 2 Ezra 16 and verse 13. For strong is his right hand that bendeth the bow. His arrows that he shooteth are sharp and shall not miss. Speaking of the ICBMs, when they began to be shot into the ends of the world. So when you go back once again to Isaiah 13 and verse 5, it says they come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Lord Yahweh and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land. So that's what's going to destroy the land, which are those missiles. Those are those arrows, right? Once again, known as glittering spear, glittering sword, flying arrows, the wasters, the spoilers. These are all names that were given by the prophets for the nuclear missiles, right? For the vernacular that they had in their time. So now, let's continue on to show that what we're seeing is prophecy, and there's nothing that anybody can do to offset prophecy. As the scriptures say, you can do nothing against the truth, but for the truth. Obadiah 1 and verse 7, and it reads, it says, all the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. So at one time, many of these nations that I named off, when you look into the Brics alliance and the nations that are looking for membership, that are vying for membership, many of these nations at one time were chief allies of Babylon. Once again, you have Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And then you have South Africa, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. Many of these nations were chief allies with Babylon, and not such a long time ago, in very recent history. Argentina, some of these nations are in the Western Hemisphere. Mexico, Bangladesh, Algeria. So these nations are all over. Northern Africa, the west coast of Africa, in the Western Hemisphere, in Central and South America, in Asia, once again, all over the globe. Indonesia, these island nations, Uruguay. So there's a lot of nations that's coming against this place. That is what it says when we go back here. Let me go back to that precept where it talked about the nations that were going to be around about her. This is Jeremiah 51 once again. Jeremiah 51 in verse 3, it says, against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself up in his brigandine, and spare ye not her young men, destroy ye utterly all her hosts. Actually, it's in Jeremiah the 50th chapter. Let me go back, Salakia. So we read this, in the beginning of the lesson. Let's go back to it. Jeremiah 50 and 9. It says, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. And it says, from thence shall she be taken. The arrow shall be as of a mighty expert man, and none shall return in vain. And that lines up with the second chapter of Joel, where it speaks about the missiles, coming and pelting Babylon and destroying this place. Now, what's important about that as we go back to Obadiah, it spoke about the men of thy, that was all the men of thy confederacy, right? So you have many nations that have turned on Babylon, and you're going to see more and more because that's prophecy. So when you go into the word confederacy in Obadiah 1 and 7, that's H1285. Now, that means the word confederacy, the men of thy confederacy, goes into those that had a covenant, an alliance. Alliances, we know, are agreements. So we're seeing these new agreements and these new pacts being made, with different nations. Brics being at the forefront of the opposition, once again, to Babylon. The common definition, the word confederacy means a league or alliance, especially of confederate states. So those nations that are coming together being like-minded to be against Babylon. Once again, to try to overthrow the dollar. That's the chief mission, right? And that's going to weaken Babylon, which is going to force war to ensue. Now, some synonyms going into that, the word confederacy, is association, a coalition, a partnership. So these nations are forming a coalition and a partnership in trade, right? Economically, militarily, etc. Now it goes on to say, and it's military from a military perspective as well, because Russia fighting this war over a year, China, nations like Iran and others have been supporting Russia in this war, using their weapons. So it goes into association, a coalition, a partnership. So this is that partnership. It also speaks on a band, meaning banding together, a group, a circle, and then fellowship. So this is all these nations coming together to come against Babylon, the common enemy. So the stage, basically, what we're seeing is the stage is being set for Babylon, to be betrayed also by the beast system, because it's not only going to be the Brics alliance, but ultimately prophecy tells us that the beast system is actually going to betray Babylon as well. So when we hear about these men of thy confederacy, right, that they have deceived thee. Now the ultimate deception is going to be Babylon being betrayed. And we see that already going on. The Brexit was part of that in 2020. The French, not being aligned with Babylon and other nations already in the EU. So that's the stage once again being set for that ultimate deception. Let's show that. That's in the book of Revelation 17. Revelation 17, I'm not going to write to the point, in verse 16. Revelation 17 and verse 16, it reads, it says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast shall hate the whore, which is who? Babylon, that's the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, which is a metaphor for what? Destroying this place, and shall burn her with fire. I read that again, Revelation 17 verse 16, and the 10 horns, right, which started with the 10 common markets, the EEC, the European Economic Community, which is just the, an extension of that now is the EU, the European Union, and NATO, which that started in around the year of 2000, right? They went from the EEC, which was formed before, unto the beast system, which is the European Union and NATO. It says, reading it again, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. And we're seeing these nations come against Babylon the Great, right? And shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So ultimately, these nations are going to turn and fire missiles on Babylon, right? That's the prophecy. They're going to turn and fire missiles on Babylon the Great, which is America. Verse 17, for the Most High hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will. So this is the will of the God of heaven and earth, whose name is Yahweh, and his son Yahweh Shah. Revelation 17 and 17, for the Most High hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, and to the words of the power shall be fulfilled. So these things are going to happen. So this is going to be fulfilled. The scriptures tell us only he who now will let or letteth until he be taken out of the way, when you read in 2 Thessalonians 2 and 7. So now, let me get a quick precept before I close it out. Just going into all of what we're seeing is showing showing forth the end, the wars and rumors of wars, and ultimately the push for World War III. So this is 2nd Esdras, the 12th chapter should be. 2nd Esdras 12, and I'll start at verse 3. It says, and I saw, and behold, there appeared no more, and the whole body of the eagle was burnt, so that the earth was in great fear. Then awakened I out of the trouble, or it says, out of the trouble and trance of my mind, and from great fear, and said unto my spirit. Let's read that again. 2nd Esdras 12 and 3. And I saw, and behold, there appeared no more. This is the vision that the prophet Esdras or Ezra was being given, showing that this destruction that was going to be. And I saw, and behold, there appeared no more. The whole body of the eagle was burnt, so that the earth was in great fear. So this is going to bring the earth in great fear when you read in Revelation, the 18th chapter. And these nations are going to mourn because of the destruction of Babylon the Great, right? And this is going to be how the captives are going to be freed. The children of Israel are going to be delivered, and righteousness being established on the earth underneath Yahweh Shai, after the Lord and the chariots and the angels get done decimating this place and taking complete rulership of the earth, right? And the kingdom of Yahweh's being established. Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, that is, right? So I don't worry about desire. We are of that number. All you believing brothers and sisters that believe and listen and have repented and continue, to remain in this faith. May the Most High continue to shalak barakim them yad unto you. Send blessings always. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Call Haloyim La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. I pray this lesson, Adawan Ratazah, was edified to the hopeful elect. Double honor to the elder apostles of Great Millstone. Peace, love, blessings, and salutations as always, as well, them yad, to the house of David, Habayah from Adawadah, and to you brothers, you Akim and Akwath, Brothers and sisters that also listen and believe on the glorious gospel, unto you I say shalom, shalom to the hopeful elect.